The galaxy was vast and mysterious, a place where countless worlds orbited distant stars. Among these worlds was Zorath 7, a planet that had remained untouched by most civilizations until humans arrived. It wasn't Earth's first attempt at colonizing another world, but it was one of the most ambitious. Jake Carter, a man in his early 30s with sun-weathered skin and calloused hands, stood on the edge of the settlement, staring at the horizon. The air here was thin but breathable, and the sky shimmered with hues of purple and orange as the twin suns began to set. Jake wasn't alone. Dozens of others had come with him, ordinary people from all walks of life who wanted something more than what Earth could offer. There was Emily Dawson, a quiet woman with sharp eyes and a knack for fixing anything mechanical. She was working nearby, adjusting the solar panels that powered their modest colony. Together they were building something new, something fragile, but full of hope. Zorath 7 was rich in resources, especially minerals that glowed faintly under the light of its twin suns. These resources were why humanity had chosen this planet, but they weren't the only ones interested in it. One day, while Jake was out surveying the land for potential mining sites, he stumbled upon something extraordinary. Buried beneath layers of rock and soil were structures, ancient and alien. They pulsed softly, almost like they were alive. Before he could investigate further, a voice startled him. "You shouldn't be here," it said. Turning quickly, Jake saw a figure standing a few feet away. At first glance, it looked humanoid, but its body sparkled as if made of tiny crystals. Its face was smooth, featureless except for two glowing orbs where eyes should have been. I didn't mean to intrude," Jake stammered, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. The creature tilted its head, studying him curiously. After a moment, it spoke again. "We are the Valens. This is our home." Jake introduced himself and explained why humans had come to Zorath 7. To his surprise, the Valen listened patiently. When Jake finished, the alien extended a slender arm toward him. "We do not wish you harm, human. Perhaps we can share this world." Over the next few weeks, Jake became the bridge between the settlers and the Valens. He learned their language, which sounded like melodic tones rather than words, and taught them some basic English in return. The Valens were peaceful and wise, sharing knowledge about the planet's ecosystem and how to sustainably harvest its resources. In turn, the humans offered tools and technology that fascinated the Valens. Life on Zorath 7 felt like it was finally falling into place. But peace never lasts long in the galaxy. One evening, as Jake and Emily sat around a campfire discussing plans for expanding the colony, an alarm blared through the settlement. Everyone rushed to the main communications hub, where Laura Bennett, the colony's tech expert, was frantically typing on her console. "It's a transmission," she said, her voice trembling, "from space." On the screen appeared a message written in bold letters: "Leave this world or be destroyed." The room fell silent. No one knew who or what had sent the message, but it was clear they weren't joking. A few minutes later, the sky lit up as a massive ship descended into orbit above Zorath 7. It was unlike anything anyone had ever seen, bristling with weapons and radiating an aura of menace. Panic spread quickly among the settlers. "What do we do?" someone asked. "We can't fight something like that." Jake clenched his fists. Running wasn't an option. If they abandoned Zorath 7 now, there would be nowhere else to go. More importantly, leaving would mean abandoning the Valens, who had welcomed them with open arms. That thought gnawed at him. He couldn't let fear dictate their actions. "We stay," Jake said firmly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "This is our home now, and we're not going to give it up without a fight." Emily nodded in agreement. "If we run, whoever this is will just follow us. We need to stand our ground." Not everyone shared their optimism. Some settlers argued that staying would be suicide, but Jake refused to back down. He gathered a small group of volunteers, including Ryan Mitchell, a former Marine who had traded combat boots for farming tools, and Laura, whose technical skills might prove invaluable. Together they began brainstorming ways to defend the colony. Meanwhile, Jake reached out to the Valens for help. Their leader, A tall, crystalline being named Lirin listened intently as Jake explained the situation. When he finished, Lirin placed a hand on his shoulder. "You have shown us kindness and respect. We will stand with you." With the Valian support, the settlers started fortifying their defenses. Laura worked tirelessly to modify their equipment, while Ryan trained a ragtag militia composed of both humans and Valens. Despite their differences, the two species found common ground in their determination to protect their shared home. Days passed intense preparation. The Krylos, the name given to the invaders, made no immediate move, but their presence loomed over the planet like a storm cloud. Every night, Jake lay awake, staring at the stars and wondering what tomorrow might bring. He knew the odds were against them, but he also knew they couldn't give up. Humanity's survival depended on it. One morning, as the twin suns rose over the horizon, Jake climbed to the top of a nearby hill to get a better view of the settlement. From there, he could see the makeshift barricades and watchtowers, the fields dotted with workers, and the glowing structures of the Valens in the distance. For the first time since arriving on Zorath 7, he felt a sense of belonging, not just to the planet, but to the community they had built together. As he turned to head back down, Emily joined him, carrying a thermos of coffee. She handed it to him with a small smile. "Still thinking about what's coming?" Jake took a sip before answering. "Yeah, but I'm not scared anymore. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." Emily nodded, her expression resolute. "Good, because I think we've got a shot at surprising them." And so, as the days ticked by and the threat grew closer, the settlers of Zorath 7 prepared for the battle of their lives. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and far from home. But they had something the Krylos didn't expect: heart. Little did the invaders know humanity wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for friendship, for unity, and for the future of a galaxy that still had much to learn about courage. The days that followed were filled with tension. The Krylos' massive warship loomed in orbit above Zorath 7 like a shadow, blocking out parts of the sky. Its presence was constant, a reminder of the threat hanging over the settlers and their alien allies. Every sunrise brought a mix of hope and dread, as if the twin suns themselves weren't sure whether to shine brightly or dim in fear. Jake Carter spent most of his time coordinating efforts to defend the colony. He had always been a man of action, preferring to work with his hands rather than sit around talking about problems. But now, he found himself in meetings almost every hour, discussing strategies with Ryan Mitchell, brainstorming ideas with Laura Bennett, and consulting with Lirin, the leader of the Valens. It was exhausting, but Jake knew they couldn't afford any mistakes. Emily Dawson was equally busy. She worked alongside Laura, tinkering with machinery and trying to adapt human technology to complement the Valens' unique abilities. The Valens' crystalline bodies emitted harmonic vibrations that could manipulate energy in ways humans had never imagined. Emily marveled at their ingenuity, realizing how much humanity still had to learn from other species. Together, she and Laura began experimenting with ways to combine human engineering with Valen resonance, hoping to create something powerful enough to stand against the Krylos. Despite their preparations, fear lingered in the air. Some settlers whispered about fleeing while there was still time. "We're not soldiers," one woman argued during a heated discussion in the mess hall. "How can we possibly fight something like that?" Others agreed, their voices rising, in panic. Jake listened quietly, letting them vent their frustrations before stepping forward. "I get it," he said, his tone calm but firm. "This isn't easy. None of us signed up for this when we came here. But running won't solve anything. If we leave, the Krylos will just follow us. Or worse, they'll destroy everything we've built. And what happens to the Valens? They've done nothing wrong." His words struck a chord. Many of the settlers glanced toward the glowing structures on the outskirts of the colony, where the Valians lived. These beings had welcomed humanity with open arms, sharing their knowledge and resources without asking for anything in return. Abandoning them now would be unthinkable. Ryan stepped in to support Jake. "Look, I've seen combat before," he said, his deep voice cutting through the murmurs. "And I know how scary it is to face an enemy you don't understand. But we're not alone here. We've got each other and we've got the Valens. Together we can make a stand." Slowly the mood shifted. People nodded, determination replacing despair. They might not have chosen this fight, but they weren't going to back down either. As the settlers rallied, the Valens also prepared for battle. Their approach was different from humanity's. They didn't rely on weapons or armor. Instead, they focused on harmony and balance, using their natural abilities to disrupt the Krylos's systems. Liren explained to Jake that the invaders' technology operated on rigid frequencies, making it vulnerable to interference. "If we can find the right resonance," Liren said, his melodic voice soothing yet confident, "we can weaken them." It was a risky plan, but Jake trusted Liren's judgment. Over the past few weeks, he had come to admire the Valens' wisdom and resilience. They might not have fought wars like the Krylos, but they understood the importance of protecting what mattered most. Meanwhile, Laura made progress in her workshop. Using fragments of Valen crystals provided by Liren, she developed a prototype, weapon capable of emitting destabilizing pulses of energy. When tested on scrap metal, the device caused the material to vibrate violently before shattering into dust. "This could work," Laura said excitedly, showing Jake and Emily the results. "If we can scale it up, we might have a chance." But scaling it up wasn't easy. The crystals were delicate and required precise calibration to function properly. Laura worked tirelessly, often staying up late into the night while Emily assisted her. Despite the challenges, their collaboration brought them closer together, forging a bond born out of shared purpose. While preparations continued on the ground, the Krylos grew impatient. Days passed without a response from the settlers, and Commander Threx, the leader of the invasion fleet, decided it was time to send a message. A transmission crackled through the colony's speakers, loud and distorted. "Your defiance amuses us," Threx growled, his voice dripping with contempt. "You think your primitive weapons can stop the might of the Krylos Empire? Surrender now, or face annihilation." The settlers froze, listening to the chilling words. Threx's voice carried an unmistakable threat, but it also revealed something else: arrogance. The Krylos believed they were invincible, untouchable. Jake saw an opportunity in their overconfidence. "They underestimate us," he told Ryan later that evening. "That's our advantage. They don't think we're capable of fighting back." Ryan grinned. "Let's prove them wrong." The next morning, the Krylos launched their first attack. Dozens of armored transports descended from the mothership, landing just outside the colony's perimeter. The settlers scrambled to their positions, gripping makeshift weapons and steeling themselves for what was to come. Jake stood at the front lines, his heart pounding but his mind clear. This was it, the moment they had been preparing for. The Krylos soldiers emerged from their ships, towering figures clad in dark armor that gleamed under the twin suns. Their movements were mechanical, precise, as if they were programmed rather than alive. They advanced steadily, ignoring the traps laid by the settlers. Explosions erupted around them, sending plumes of dust into the air, but the invaders pressed on without hesitation. For a brief moment, doubt crept into Jake's mind. Had they made a terrible mistake? Were they truly ready for this? Then, the Valens acted. From hidden positions throughout the battlefield, they unleashed waves of harmonic energy, targeting the Krylos's equipment. The invaders' weapons faltered, their shields flickering as the resonant frequencies disrupted their systems. Seizing the opportunity, Ryan led a counterattack, charging forward with a group of settlers armed with Laura's prototype devices. The pulsating energy beams cut through the Krylos's defenses, forcing them to retreat. The battle lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. When the dust settled, the settlers cheered, their voices echoing across the landscape. They had won. Against all odds, they had driven the Krylos back, but the victory was bittersweet. As Jake surveyed the aftermath, he noticed the cost. Several settlers lay injured, and one young man had lost his life defending the colony. Tears welled up in Jake's eyes as he knelt beside the fallen man. promising to honor his sacrifice. Back at the settlement, the mood was somber despite the triumph. Everyone knew this was just the beginning. The Krylos wouldn't give up so easily. Commander Threx would regroup and strike again, stronger and more determined than before. That night, Jake sat by the campfire with Emily, staring into the flames. "We did it," she said softly. "We actually held them off." Jake nodded, but his expression remained grim. "Yeah, we did, but they'll be back. And next time we need to be ready." Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "We will be. We've got each other, and the Valens. That makes us stronger than they realize." Jake smiled faintly, grateful for her unwavering support. He looked around at the faces of his fellow settlers, illuminated by the firelight. They were ordinary people, far from home, facing extraordinary challenges. Yet, in their unity and determination, he saw something extraordinary, a spark of hope that refused to be extinguished. Above them, the twin suns cast long shadows over the land. Somewhere beyond the horizon, the Krylos warship waited, its engines humming ominously. But for now, the settlers of Zorath 7 could rest, knowing they had taken the first step in defending their new home. The victory over the Krylos' first attack was a small triumph, but it came at a cost. The settlers had proven they could fight back, but the scars of battle lingered, both on the land and in their hearts. Jake Carter walked through the colony, early the next morning, his boots crunching against the dry soil. The air smelled faintly of smoke from the fires that had burned during the skirmish. He passed by makeshift barricades still stained with ash and debris, reminders of how close they had come to disaster. Emily Dawson joined him as he reached the edge of the settlement. She carried a clipboard, jotting down notes about repairs and supplies needed. "We've got work to do," she said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion etched on her face. "The traps we set up need reinforcing, and Laura says some of her devices overheated during the fight." Jake nodded. "We'll fix them, but we also need to think ahead. This was just a taste of what the Krylos can throw at us." Emily stopped, walking, and turned to face him. "Do you really think they'll come back? I mean, after what happened yesterday?" Jake didn't hesitate. "Absolutely. Threx isn't going to let this go. To him, we're nothing more than bugs to be crushed. He won't stop until he's sure we're either gone or dead." Her expression hardened. "Then we make sure we're neither." The two of them continued toward the Valens' glowing structures, where Liren awaited them. The crystalline alien stood tall, his body shimmering softly under the light of the twin suns. Around him, other Valens worked quietly, repairing damage to their own homes caused by the battle. Despite their peaceful nature, the Valens understood that war had come to their world, and they were determined to protect it. "Your courage inspires us," Liren said as Jake and Emily approached. His melodic voice carried warmth, even though his words were serious. "But courage alone will not win this fight. We must deepen our bond if we are to withstand the Krylos." Jake agreed. "That's why we're here. We want to learn more about your abilities. If we combine them with our technology, maybe we can create something stronger." Liren gestured for them to follow him inside one of the glowing structures. Inside, the walls pulsed gently, casting soft light across the room. At the center was a large crystal formation, vibrating with harmonic energy. Liren placed a hand on it, and the vibrations grew louder, resonating through the space. "This is the heart of our power," Liren explained. "It allows us to manipulate energy and matter. By focusing our resonance, we can disrupt systems like those used by the Krylos." Emily stepped closer, her eyes wide with fascination. "Could we replicate this somehow? Maybe build tools that mimic your abilities?" Liren tilted his head thoughtfully. "Perhaps, but such a task would require great care. Your machines are rigid while our energy flows freely. Combining the two may prove difficult." Jake crossed his arms. "Difficult doesn't mean impossible. We've got Laura. She's brilliant when it comes to engineering. If anyone can figure it out, it's her." With Liren's permission, Emily took detailed notes about the crystal's properties and how the Valens harnessed its energy. When they returned to the settlement, they shared everything with Laura Bennett, who immediately began brainstorming ways to integrate Valen technology into human designs. Laura's workshop became the busiest place in the colony. Tools clattered, sparks flew, and prototypes took shape on cluttered tables. Ryan Mitchell often stopped by to check on her progress, offering suggestions based on his military experience. Together, they refined Laura's earlier weapon designs, incorporating feedback from the Valens to make them more effective. Meanwhile, Jake focused on strengthening the colony's defenses. He worked closely with Ryan to train the settlers, teaching them basic combat tactics and how to use the new weapons. Though many of them had never held a gun before, their determination made up for their lack of experience. "Remember," Jake told them during one training session, "we're not trying to match the Krylos in brute force. We're smarter than they are. Use the terrain, use teamwork, and always keep moving." As the days passed, the settlers grew more confident. They dug trenches, erected watchtowers, and laid additional traps around the perimeter. The Valens contributed too, using their ability to manipulate energy fields to create invisible barriers that could slow down the Krylos's advance. It was a partnership born out of necessity, but it quickly became something deeper, a shared commitment to protecting their home. Despite their progress, tension remained high. Every night the settlers gathered around campfires talking quietly about what might happen next. Some worried that the Krylos would return with overwhelming numbers, crushing them before they had a chance to fight back. Others feared that the invaders would target the Valens directly, knowing how vital they were to the colony's defense. One evening, as Jake sat with Emily and Ryan near the edge of the settlement, a young settler named Mia approached them. Her hands trembled as she spoke. What if we're not strong enough? What if all this isn't enough?" Ryan leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "Mia, listen to me. Strength isn't just about numbers or firepower. It's about standing together no matter what. Look at what we've already done. We beat them once and we'll do it again." Jake added, "And we're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for the Valens, for Zorath 7, and for everyone who believes in peace instead of domination. That's worth every bit of effort we put into this." Mia nodded slowly, her fear giving way to resolve. "Okay, I'll keep going, for all of us." The next day brought an unexpected development. While patrolling the outskirts of the colony, Jake and a group of settlers discovered a damaged Krylos drone lying half-buried in the dirt. Its sleek metal frame was scorched, likely from the previous battle. Cautiously, they brought it back to Laura's workshop for examination. Laura examined the drone carefully, her brow furrowed in concentration. After several hours, she called Jake and Emily over. "This thing's tech is advanced, but not invincible," she said, pointing to a series of circuits inside the drone. "Their systems rely heavily on specific frequency patterns. If we can jam those frequencies, we might be able to disable entire squads of their soldiers." Emily's eyes lit up. "Like what the Valens do with their resonance?" "Exactly," Laura replied. "If we combine their harmonic energy with our jamming devices, we could cripple the Krylos's forces without firing a single shot." Jake grinned. "Now that's a plan." Over the next few days, the settlers and Valens worked tirelessly to implement Laura's idea. They modified existing equipment to emit frequency jamming signals, testing them repeatedly to ensure they wouldn't harm the Valens' own energy fields. Each successful test boosted morale, reminding everyone that they were capable of achieving the impossible. But even as they prepared, the looming threat of the Krylos weighed heavily on their minds. Commander Threx hadn't launched another attack yet, which only added to the unease. Was he planning something bigger? Something worse? Late one night, Jake climbed to the top of a nearby hill to get a better view of the sky. The Krylos mothership still hung above Zorath 7, its massive silhouette blocking out stars. Beside him, Emily joined silently, handing him a thermos of coffee. "They're watching us," she said softly, gazing up at the ship. waiting for us to slip up. Jake sipped the coffee, his gaze fixed on the distant vessel. Let them watch. We're not slipping up. Not now. Not ever. Emily smiled faintly. You sound so sure. I have to be, he replied. Because if I'm not, then none of this matters. Below them, the colony bustled with activity, even in the darkness. Lights flickered in the distance as settlers continued their preparations, unaware of the quiet conversation happening above. In that moment, Jake felt a surge of pride. These people, ordinary men and women from Earth, had become something extraordinary. They weren't just survivors. They were protectors, warriors, and friends. As the twin suns began to rise once more, painting the sky in vibrant hues, Jake turned to Emily. Whatever happens next, we'll face it together. All of us. She nodded, her smile widening. Together. The days leading up to the next Krylos attack were tense. Every sunrise brought a mix of anticipation and dread, as if the twin suns themselves couldn't decide whether to shine brightly or dim in fear. The settlers of Zorath 7 worked tirelessly, reinforcing their defenses and preparing for whatever might come next. Jake Carter moved among them, offering encouragement and advice, but even he couldn't shake the feeling that something big was on the horizon. Emily Dawson stayed close to where Laura Bennett's workshop, helping refine the frequency jamming devices they hoped would give them an edge in the upcoming battle. The prototypes were promising, but there was no guarantee they'd work against the full might of the Krylos forces. Still, Emily refused to let doubt creep in. We've got this, she told Laura one afternoon, her voice steady despite the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. If we can disrupt their systems long enough to break through their ranks, we'll have a chance. Laura nodded, though her expression remained focused. She had spent countless hours fine-tuning the devices, testing them repeatedly to ensure they wouldn't interfere with the Valen's harmonic energy. It was delicate work, requiring precision and patience. But every time she saw the glowing structures of the Valens in the distance, she reminded herself why it mattered. We're not just protecting ourselves, she muttered under her breath. We're protecting everyone. Meanwhile, Ryan Mitchell trained the settlers relentlessly. He pushed them harder than ever before, drilling them on how to use the new weapons and coordinate with the Valens during combat. Though many of the settlers were exhausted, they didn't complain. They knew what was at stake. When the Krylos come, and they will, we need to be ready, Ryan said during one particularly grueling session. They think they can roll over us like we're nothing. Let's show them otherwise. Jake joined these training sessions whenever he could, offering guidance based on his own experiences. He wasn't a soldier by trade, but he understood the importance of teamwork and strategy. Stay sharp, he told the group after a mock battle exercise. And remember, we're stronger together than we are apart. Despite their efforts, the waiting game wore on everyone. The Krylos mothership loomed above them like a storm cloud, its presence constant and oppressive. Some settlers whispered about fleeing while they still had the chance, but those voices grew quieter with each passing day. The colony had already proven it could stand its ground, and now the settlers felt a sense of purpose they hadn't known before. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about protecting their home, their friends, and their future. Then, without warning, the Krylos struck again. It began with a deafening roar as dozens of transport ships descended from the sky, landing just outside the colony's perimeter. The settlers scrambled to their positions, gripping their weapons tightly. Jake stood at the front lines, his heart pounding but his mind clear. Beside him, Ryan gave a quick nod, signaling that everyone was ready. The Krylos soldiers emerged from their ships, moving with mechanical precision. Their dark armor gleamed under the twin suns, and their weapons crackled with energy. Unlike the previous attack, this time they advanced cautiously, clearly aware of the traps laid by the settlers. Explosions erupted around them as some of the invaders triggered hidden mines, but the rest pressed forward undeterred. They're learning, Emily said grimly as she watched the scene unfold from a nearby watchtower. She adjusted the controls of her frequency jamming device, aiming it at the advancing Krylos forces. When she activated it, a low hum filled the air, followed by a series of sharp clicks as the Krylos weapons faltered. Several soldiers stumbled, their shields flickering and failing. "Yes!" Laura cheered from another tower where she operated a similar device. The settlers seized the opportunity, charging forward with their modified weapons. Beams of destabilizing energy cut through the Krylos' defenses, forcing them to retreat momentarily. But the invaders quickly adapted. A second wave of soldiers surged forward, bypassing the jammed frequencies and focusing their attacks on the watchtowers. One of the towers collapsed under heavy fire, sending shards of metal raining down on the battlefield. Emily barely managed to jump clear, landing hard on the ground below. "Emily!" Jake shouted, spotting her near the wreckage. He started toward her, but Ryan grabbed his arm. "Stay focused," Ryan barked. "She's fine. You can check on her later." Reluctantly, Jake turned back to the fight, his jaw clenched in frustration. He trusted Ryan's judgment, but seeing Emily in danger made his blood boil. He raised his weapon and fired at the nearest Krylos soldier, hitting him squarely in the chest. The alien staggered backward before collapsing, its armor cracked and smoking. Across the battlefield, the Valens unleashed waves of harmonic energy, targeting the Krylos' equipment. Their resonant frequencies disrupted the invaders' communication systems, causing confusion among their ranks. Liren led the charge, his crystalline body glowing brighter with each pulse of energy. "Hold steady," he called out to his fellow Valens. "We are stronger than they believe." Inspired by the Valens' bravery, the settlers fought with renewed determination. They worked together seamlessly, combining human ingenuity with alien abilities to create chaos on the battlefield. The Krylos, once confident in their superiority, found themselves struggling to maintain order. But Commander Threx wasn't about to let his forces fail. From the safety of his warship, he monitored the battle closely, his cold eyes narrowing as he observed the settlers' tactics. "Primitive weapons won't save you," he growled, his voice dripping with disdain. With a flick of his wrist, he ordered reinforcements to deploy, a fresh wave of heavily armored troops equipped with advanced shielding technology. When the reinforcements arrived, the tide of the battle shifted. The settlers' weapons struggled to penetrate the new shields, and the frequency jamming devices proved less effective against the upgraded systems. Panic began to spread as the Krylos pushed deeper into the colony, destroying barricades and setting fire to buildings. Jake realized they needed a new plan, and fast. He spotted Liren nearby, directing a group of Valens as they launched another wave of harmonic pulses. "Liren!" Jake shouted, running over to him. "We can't hold them off forever. We need to hit them where it hurts, right at their command center." Liren tilted his head thoughtfully. "Their command center is aboard their warship. Reaching? It will be difficult." "I know," Jake replied. "But if we don't do something, they'll overrun us. Can your people keep them distracted while we find a way to get inside?" Liren hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "We will hold them as long as we can. Go quickly, human." With that, Jake gathered a small team to carry out his daring plan. Alongside him were Ryan, Emily, who insisted on joining despite her earlier close call, and Laura, whose technical expertise might prove invaluable. Together they slipped away from the main battle, heading toward a captured Krylos shuttle they had hidden earlier. As they approached the shuttle, Jake glanced back at the colony. Flames licked at the horizon, and the sounds of battle echoed in the distance. His stomach churned with guilt at leaving the others behind, but he knew this was their best shot at turning the tide. "Let's move," he said firmly, climbing into the cockpit. Ryan took the controls, guiding the shuttle into the air. Below them, the Valens unleashed a massive burst of harmonic energy, creating a dazzling display of light that temporarily blinded the Krylos forces. The diversion gave the shuttle enough cover to ascend unnoticed, blending into the swarm of enemy vessels orbiting the planet. Once they reached the mothership, Jake and his team prepared to board. The ship's sleek exterior loomed ominously, its surface covered in weapons turrets and sensor arrays. "This is insane," Emily muttered, clutching her weapon tightly. "What happens if we get caught?" "We don't get caught," Jake said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "We stick to the plan and we finish this." With that, they docked the shuttle and stepped onto the mothership, stepping into the unknown. The corridors were eerily quiet, lined with pulsating lights that cast eerie shadows on the walls. Jake signaled for the others to stay close as they moved cautiously, avoiding patrols and disabling security cameras along the way. Their goal was the ship's central command hub, a massive chamber housing the core systems that controlled the entire fleet. If they could sabotage it, they might cripple the Krylos's operations. But reaching it wouldn't be easy. The ship was a maze of twisting hallways and locked doors, each step bringing them closer to danger. At one point, they encountered a group of Krylos engineers working on a damaged console. Jake motioned for the team to hide behind a stack of crates until the engineers passed. As they waited, Laura whispered, "I hope the others are okay." "They are," Jake replied quietly, "because we're going to make sure of it." Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the command hub. The door slid open silently, revealing a cavernous room filled with glowing panels and humming machinery. In the center stood Commander Threx himself, his towering figure radiating authority. Jake tightened his grip on his weapon. "Time to end this," he said, stepping forward. The command hub of the Krylos mothership was a vast chamber, filled with glowing panels and pulsating energy conduits that lined the walls. At its center stood Commander Threx, his towering figure surrounded by holographic displays showing maps of Zorath 7 and real-time updates from the battle below. The hum of machinery filled the air, blending with the faint crackle of energy weapons being readied nearby. Jake Carter and his team froze for a moment, their eyes locked on Threx's imposing presence. Threx turned slowly, his cold gaze sweeping across the room until it landed on the intruders. His lips curled into a sneer. "You dare set foot on my ship?" he growled, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Pathetic humans thinking you can challenge the might of the Krylos Empire." Jake stepped forward, raising his weapon steadily. "We're not here to negotiate," he said, his tone firm despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "We're here to stop you." Threx laughed, a deep and menacing sound that reverberated off the walls. "Stop me? With your primitive tools and fragile bodies? You are nothing but insects scurrying beneath my boots." He gestured to the guards stationed around the room. "Dispose of them." Instantly, the Krylos soldiers moved to surround Jake and his team. Ryan Mitchell reacted quickly, firing his destabilizing pulse weapon at the nearest guard. The beam struck true, sending the soldier stumbling backward as his armor cracked and sizzled. Emily Dawson followed up by targeting another guard, her aim steady even as her hands trembled slightly from nerves. Laura Bennett stayed close to the group, clutching a small device she had brought along, a prototype designed to disrupt the ship's systems. "Stay together," Jake shouted, taking cover behind one of the control panels. Energy blasts flew past them, striking the walls and leaving scorched marks. Despite being outnumbered, the team held their ground, using the environment to their advantage. They ducked behind consoles, dodged incoming fire, and returned shots whenever they could. Laura glanced at the glowing core in the center of the room, a massive orb of pulsating energy that seemed to power the entire ship. She knew it was there. Best chance to cripple the mothership. "Jake," she called out over the chaos, "if we overload that core, we can disable the whole thing." Jake nodded, understanding immediately what needed to be done. "Ryan, Emily, cover us. Laura and I will get to the core." Ryan and Emily formed a defensive line, firing relentlessly at the advancing Krylos soldiers. Their modified weapons wreaked havoc on the invaders' shields, forcing them to retreat, momentarily. Meanwhile, Jake and Laura sprinted toward the core, weaving between bursts of enemy fire. As they reached the base of the core, Laura pulled out her disruptor device and began attaching it to the surface. Her hands moved quickly, her focus unwavering as she worked to bypass the security protocols guarding the system. "This is going to take a minute," she shouted, her voice barely audible over the din of battle. Behind them, Ryan and Emily fought valiantly to hold off the Krylos. Emily fired shot after shot, her movements precise and deliberate. When one of the soldiers got too close, Ryan tackled him to the ground, wrestling for control of his weapon. It was brutal, chaotic, but they refused to give an inch. Commander. Threx watched the scene unfold with growing frustration. He hadn't expected these humans to pose such a threat, let alone infiltrate his ship. His pride stung. He decided to intervene personally. With a roar, he charged toward Jake and Laura, intent on stopping them before they could sabotage the core. Jake saw Threx coming and raised his weapon, firing a pulse directly at the commander. The beam struck Threx's chest, causing him to stagger but not fall. Unlike his soldiers, Threx wore reinforced armor that absorbed most of the impact. Undeterred, he kept moving, closing the distance between them with terrifying speed. "Laura, hurry!" Jake yelled, stepping in front of her to buy more time. He aimed again, this time targeting Threx's helmet. The shot missed, narrowly grazing the side of the commander's head. Threx snarled, grabbing Jake by the throat and lifting him off. "The ground. You should have stayed on your little rock," Threx spat, tightening his grip. Jake struggled to breathe, clawing at the armored hand, crushing his windpipe. Desperation fueled him, and with every ounce of strength he had left, he swung his weapon like a club, smashing it against Threx's arm. The blow forced the commander to release him, giving Jake just enough time to stumble back to his feet. By now, Laura had finished setting up the disruptor device. "It's ready!" she cried, pressing a button on the console. A low whine emanated from the core as the system began to destabilize. Warning lights flashed red and alarms blared throughout the chamber. Threx realized what was happening and roared in fury. "Fools! Do you think destroying this ship will save you? The Kralos Empire is endless." Jake didn't respond. Instead, he grabbed Laura's arm and pulled her toward the exit. "Let's go," he shouted, signaling for Ryan and Emily to follow. Together, the team made a break for the shuttle bay, racing through the twisting corridors of the mothership as explosions rocked the vessel behind them. The destabilized core sent shockwaves rippling through the ship, causing parts of the ceiling to collapse and debris to rain down. Jake led the way, navigating the chaos with grim determination. Every step felt heavier than the last, but none of them dared slow down. They were so close to escaping, but the danger wasn't over yet. When they finally reached the shuttle bay, they found it swarming with Krylos reinforcements. The enemy soldiers opened fire immediately, pinning the team down behind a stack of crates. Bullets ricocheted off metal surfaces and the air grew thick with smoke and heat. "We're not getting out of here alive," Emily muttered, her voice trembling. For the first time since the mission began, doubt crept into her mind. "Yes, we are," Ryan snapped, his tone leaving no room for argument. "We've come too far to quit now." Jake scanned the area, searching for a way to turn the situation in their favor. Then he spotted it, a cluster of fuel tanks near the far wall. If they could detonate those, they might create enough confusion to make a run for the shuttle. "Ryan, cover me," he ordered, then bolted toward the tanks, zigzagging to avoid enemy fire. Ryan unleashed a barrage of pulses, keeping the Krylos distracted while Jake planted a small explosive charge on the tanks. Once it was set, he signaled for everyone to move. "Now!" he shouted, pressing the trigger. The explosion was deafening, sending flames and shrapnel flying in all directions. The force knocked several Krylos soldiers off their feet, creating a gap in their defenses. Without hesitation, Jake and his team sprinted for the shuttle, diving inside just as more guards arrived. "Go! Go! Go!" Jake yelled, slamming the hatch shut behind them. Ryan took the controls, piloting the shuttle out of the bay and into open space. Behind them, the mothership groaned under the strain of the destabilized core. Its hull buckled, and then, with a blinding flash, it exploded, sending a shockwave rippling through the void. The team watched in silence as the wreckage drifted apart, the once mighty warship reduced to floating debris. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of what they had accomplished and survived was almost too much to process. Finally, Emily broke the silence. Did we really do it?" Jake leaned back in his seat, letting out a long breath. "Yeah," he said softly. "We did." But even as relief washed over them, Jake knew the fight wasn't truly over. The destruction of the mothership would deal a significant blow to the Krylos, but it wouldn't end their aggression forever. As the shuttle descended back toward Zorath 7, he gazed out the window at the twin suns casting their golden light over the planet below. "We won this round," he said quietly. "But we've got to keep fighting, for the colony, for the Valens, and for anyone else who believes in standing up to tyranny." Emily nodded, her expression resolute. "Then, we'll keep fighting, together,"